Hello and welcome to all of you. Since the beginning of 2018, about 70,000 migrants and refugees have moved through Bosnia and Herzegovina via the Western Balkans migration route. You can see behind me the city of Bihać in the Bosnian canton of Unasana. It is very close to the Croatian border, which makes it the end of the line for migrants who are trying to reach the European Union. Now, what are the root causes of the situation? What are its political and social implications? Let's investigate this by following key actors in the field and the daily challenges they face. Bosnia and Herzegovina is a small country with a population of 3.8 million people in 2021. It was born from a breakup of Yugoslavia, and as a result, it inherited a complex administrative structure. It is necessary to understand it to grasp what is at stake in this migrant crisis. Today, Bosnia and Herzegovina comprises two entities, the Bosnian Serb-led Republika Srpska and the Bosniak-Croat-led Federation. We have to add the Brčko district, which is formally part of both entities.
These were decided from the Dayton Agreement after the war has ended. So the Republika Srpska takes 49% of the territory of the country, and it's mainly on a sea form, which you can have from here and then to the east and up there. You have the entity of Brčko that is a bit to the north, and you have the rest of the territory is occupied by the Federation. The Federation of Bosnia-Herzegovina has 10 cantons. Each of those entities have autonomous government, although there is a central government in Sarajevo, the capital. So that's a bit the structure in a nutshell. UNHCR is one of the UN agencies that specialize into being what we call the UN Refugee Agency, based on the Convention of 1951 that gave UNHCR the mandate of supporting the government when it comes to asylum and all that. So I am, in fact, the representative for the High Commissioner, who's the head of the agency, for the country of Bosnia-Herzegovina. So I have the mandate for this country to take our activities to hopefully a success with the government.
During the 2010s, according to the International Organization for Migrations, Europe witnessed the biggest refugee crisis since the Second World War. In 2015 alone, an estimated 1.3 million people came to Europe to request asylum. The key route was the Balkan corridor, but originally, Bosnia was rarely included in that route.
The situation with migrants and refugees in Bosnia and Herzegovina is a continuation of the situation which the so-called closed Balkan routes from 2015, in which we did see a certain shift not only in the numbers of people and the flow and the direction, but also of the composition of the persons who are on the move.
Initially, the majority of migrants and refugees came from Turkey and Greece and moved through what is now North Macedonia and Serbia towards Hungary before reaching Western Europe. However, between July and September 2015, Hungary erected a border barrier with Serbia, and North Macedonia also decided to tighten its border controls, constructing a fence in November 2015. Other measures then further sealed off the borders, bringing a shift in the so-called Balkan Route.
So they come from, the majority have crossed into Turkey, then Greece, so they have been in the EU territory. However, they were stuck there. So coming through the Balkans, most of them from Serbia or Montenegro, and then through Bosnia-Herzegovina to access Croatia, who's in the European Union, is since 2018 a very common route that has been used.
These routes are not linear, and many of the migrants I interviewed were either deported or imprisoned several times.
Three tried to come to Turkey. Turkey police beating back. After come Turkey, after come Greece. Greece police catch us 1 year in jail, prisoner. After 1 year, they free us, and 11 try to Serbia.
The new arrivals to the country come from a few main places of origin: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria and Bangladesh. There are some smaller nationalities that people are coming from, but they're the ones that are the biggest numbers in this territory.
It is a mixed movement situation because we have people who are both fleeing persecution, interested in international protection and wanting it here, but also people who are economic migrants.
Many of the economic migrants I met came from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, to have better life and better future. That's why I've come here.
I mean, everyone has their own individual circumstance and situation, but I think what's really important when we think about these two terms, migrant and refugee, is that refugee is a legal term, and attached to that status are legal obligations. So the authorities here in Bosnia have a legal obligation towards those people to make sure that they have access to international protection and that their lives are protected, which is very different to the situation of migrants.
It's important to be able to profile and distinct the people that are in need of international protection because they were forced to flee their country.
I met several Afghan refugees who have been hunted by the Taliban for cooperating with the government.
This is the Taliban. This is from.
What does it say?
It says, "We are warning you that stop working with the government. For the next time, we will not send you a letter." They start to torturing me and get a knife and cut my eye. This is the protest. This is not the real eye. You can see it. And also I have a mark on my face here. And also I have marks on my hands here.
His family is now threatened, but it is difficult to timely reach the refugee status.
However, there is a certain number of people who would like to stay, and it's difficult really to identify them and make sure that they are properly channeled and processed through asylum procedure.
Basically, when all this mixed migration occurred in Bosnia, the state of Bosnia, we were not prepared. We did not have any facilities, so everything was built.
The first temporary reception center I visited, Ucivac, is close to Sarajevo and predominantly provides accommodation to families and vulnerable migrants. As such, it is not overpopulated and the living conditions are constantly improved by new facilities and services. This is quite different from the centers I will visit in northern Bosnia.
We can see over time fluctuations in groups, single adult males, unaccompanied and separated children making a huge percentage of the group.
I am now visiting the temporary reception center of Blajoui, which is primarily for male migrants. Behind me is one of the many dorms where they sleep. Some people will only stay here several days, and some will stay several months.
At this very moment, there is some capacity available in the centers. The challenge is, of course, that many people who are sleeping rough, in particular in Unasana Canton, may prefer not to be in centers for a variety of reasons. Sometimes this is because these are people going on onward movement. They have their smugglers, and so they have their own arrangements. They don't want to be restricted in centers. Other times, vulnerable people may not feel safe in the centers, and this for us is quite worrying.
We do have a lot of different sort of profiles that we're aware of, and I'm sure plenty that we're not aware of, but who are seeking asylum either as LGBTI, individuals, as victims who are survivors of sexual or gender-based violence, and then of course because of the different cultures that are represented amongst the migrant population, certain people with specific profiles might be at heightened risk of some sort of abuse or violence.
Like, I'm from Afghanistan. I have no habit with some Arab. I don't know the language of Arab people, but we must spend in one container. By a small problem, we are facing in a big problem,
Well, you also have unaccompanied children who are often working closely with smugglers, and it can be very challenging for them to, they don't want to accept accommodation where the government wants to put them, and so then they leave on their own will and end up squatting. So it's a challenging situation.
We've been able to address a lot of the humanitarian needs of those migrants that have entered the country, and now we're at a need to a bit provide specialized solutions for the populations here, and whether that's return to their country of origin, safe return, whether it's asylum in this country, whether it's a complementary pathway to a third country, whether it's local integration here. I think we need to take it to the next level.
We are now leaving for Northern Bosnia, where migrants are much more numerous.
Why do so many people end up here?
Well, it's pure geography. This is the closest part of Bosnia to the Schengen area.
Clandestine border crossing takes several days, often weeks, and is extremely dangerous. To reach Croatia, they need to cross the mountains and sometimes rivers. Migrants find it increasingly difficult to cross the border, and many of them end up being severely beaten up by the border police and sent back to Bosnia. Reception centers were deployed in emergency in the Unasana canton, but they pose issues in a country where competent institutions are under-resourced. For instance, the reception center of Lipa made the headlines when it was destroyed by fire in the middle of winter.
After the temporary reception center, as it was called, burned down at the end of 2020, this location here, this temporary site, was established as emergency shelter to accommodate all of those people who had no more accommodation in the previous or the burned down center. The local authorities came forward together with the state authorities, and then with, of course, support of the international community and the EU.
The improvement of living conditions in the centers has been rapid and impressive. However, it can only be a temporary solution.
Something that we try to emphasize is asylum for those in need of international protection, and then on the other hand, the AVRR program that IOM has been running in the past, which is assisted voluntary return to their home country.
But all the residents I interviewed there still hope to cross the border.
Rest after going, inshallah.
At nightfall, many of them hit the road to try their luck. This forest is one of the pathways that the migrants will use to cross the border. We decided to wait until the next day to visit hiding places in the mountain. Here we are extremely close to the Croatian border. What you can see behind me is one of the spots where the migrants are hiding, waiting to cross the border at night.
He tried 49 times, I try more than 35 times. 49
tried
times.
49 times?
He's from India. After 15 days we get ready, we buy power bank, mobile, SIM cards, shoes, clothes, everything. So we spend almost €200 each person.
How many hours do you have to walk?
You see, we usually wake up like early morning about 4 o'clock, when the sun rising, you see, then we have to go. So until you see when the darkness comes, then we sleep down. It takes 10, 12, 15 days if the rain is not stop. Or when sometime we see the police, then we hide it for 8 hours, 10 hours inside the jungle, you see. If your luck is good, then you will find a good police. Otherwise, on the spot, they will start to hurt you. How they like it, they do it. So when they push back you in the border, there will be a very, very big mess. They can almost kill you. Only two things to go on in your mind. Destination when will arrive, or maybe the police saw us, because that is a problem.
But how do Bosnian citizens perceive this situation? To understand this, I have decided to interview the mayor of Bihać.
For us, it's earthquake. It's something we are not able to prevent. It's something we are not able to stop. You know, we just victim in this situation. European Union, actually, we were considered as xenophobes, as a community which is against migrants and so on and so on. You know, it's a problem of all of us, and it's not fair that sometimes only one who had to handle this situation actually is Bihać inhabitants.
Interviewing citizens proved difficult, as most of them did not want to talk to the camera or did not speak English.
To normalno standardno, meni što se tiče mene i većinom građana ne smetaju. Možda nekad se neki eksces to nije da kažem, jedni migranti više vrstasti sekti, da kažem, vrsta nekad se desi nešto.
A i mislim da je vrlo malo s njima bilo problema. Oni obično među sobom imaju neki sukobi, nešto. I tako.
It's like there are two sides. One side is all no, 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 and the other side is neutral. They don't really care because they don't have any, just like me, they don't have interactions, they don't, the entire situation doesn't really reflect on them, so they don't really care about what's going on.
How to provide good preconditions for migrants on the other side, but how to protect our interest, how to protect people, how to compensate some damages, because we have had so many damages in city since 2018.
Local complaints especially target migrants living outside official camps and often squatting abandoned houses. This is one of the squats I decided to visit.
So this is where you live?
Yeah, here we prepare food. Here we sleep.
So this is the room here where we sleep.
Only 6 people here sleep.
And
6 people here sleep.
6 people here?
And 9 people there.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So you have food?
Yes. Everything food. Yes, everything food.
So this food comes from...
All food.
They come from NGOs?
Yes.
Okay.
NGOs and IUM Bosnia.
They told me they prefer to stay outside of official camps because they are interested in onward movement.
Everybody is there for future, better future. Yeah. For our family, for our brother, for...
Maybe after all family here.
Yeah.
Settled.
But all of them also denounced the false pieces of information that were given by smugglers.
What would you say to other people from your countries that would maybe have the same idea to come to Bosnia?
No. Come direct with documents. No, come here to illegal.
Many of those who don't make it through the border end up in reception centers like Miral.
Croatian people took everything from us.
I told him don't come to here because he have to many problems. You understand? And somebody have to Pakistan problem, okay, he's coming. But if you don't have problem for in Pakistan, you will stay there.
I think it's a bit of a mistake that people make to assume that the individual has total agency in the route that they take. And there are very clear, I guess I can say it, criminal networks that operate. That is the fact that smugglers and traffickers do operate in certain regions, and when people are in desperate situations and they are trying to reach safety, sometimes they have to move within these networks and the paths that have been established.
This Syrian refugee with children lost track of his wife because of smugglers.
كان العدد المفروض يكون 37 شخص، ركبنا بالقارب كان العدد 67 شخص. القارب كان اتفاقنا على انه قارب جيت بوت، طلع قارب مطاطي.
And why did you choose to come to Bosnia? Because someone told you it was the best place to cross? Or
because somebody goes to this place for with the Croatia, you know, and it's close for border.
Traveling back through a beautiful country that is Bosnia and Herzegovina brings many questions. Behind the so-called migrant and refugee crisis, many underlying issues are at stake, such as geopolitical struggles, cooperation at the local, national and international level, lack of resources, dependence on the international community, and influence of criminal networks. Solutions exist. However, all my interlocutors agree on one point. The answer cannot rest on the shoulders of only one actor.
There are many different types of persons that are present in the territory. So there are migrants which would have very different needs to asylum seekers. And a lot of the institutional problems and the fact that the asylum authorities have been overwhelmed is also because this initial triaging needs to really happen early and efficiently.
people, inhabitants of Bihać, consider me as one of who is responsible for this, expect some solutions. I'm not able to provide solutions. You know, only one way how to handle this situation actually is make cooperation with state level.
There is a best case scenario when it comes for Bosnia and Herzegovina and when it comes to what our priority is here, and this is to ensure that the asylum system is functioning and that people who are seeking and granted refugee status are well integrated. However, if you are more thinking about the resolution of this mixed movement, Bosnia is not alone, and it's not a Bosnia situation. This is a situation which is much wider. It's regional, and ultimately the source, the root of the issue is not, for the most part, in Europe, but somewhere else.
Leaders, state leaders, needs to be reminded of their obligation and their responsibility. I think that if we all work into building peace, social cohesion, support institution and economic growth, this all are elements that would prevent people from leaving their country. When I look at the Sarajevo, a city who has suffered from the war, from social division, it's a constant reminder that if we don't work in the same direction, it's not going to happen.
Voila, I hope that you found this short documentary insightful. I have to say, this is just an introduction because there are so many factors involved. But I really try to show you objectively what the actors in the field are living on a daily basis. Before saying goodbye, I would really like to say thank you. Thank you to all the people who made it possible. Thank you to the UNHCR for welcoming me. And thank you to you for watching.